Hey guys, just a reminder, if you want to hear all of these wonderful B Plus podcast episodes completely ad-free, make sure you head over to Patreon or Podbean, where we are the featured podcast this week. You can subscribe for as little as $1 a month up to $10 a month, where anything you want to help us with, it really helps out. It's going to help us grow the site. It's going to help us redesign some things, and everything that we get through this and through the advertising as well is all going straight back into the podcast so that we can get Aussie Graps out there for the rest of the world to hear about, for the rest of the world to see, so we can grow this mission of watch global, support local, and build indie wrestling. So if you want to be a part of that and get some really cool rewards like call-in shows, bonus episodes, ad-free like I mentioned, then head over to patreon.com/theb+ and subscribe today.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening.
Hold one. Andre.
You're not good at this. Get out. Let me tell you a personal story about Vince McMahon.
You just made the list.
Oh my God.
Sorry, no speak English.
Dummy. Goodbye and good night. Hold two. On bar.
It's still real to me, damn it.
Dummy. Yeah.
This is the worst town I've ever been in.
Hold three. Lamas covers. Three-handle family Gradunzo.
Mamma mia.
And now, Unchained.media presents the B Plus Podcast with your host, Greg Unchained.
It's me, Austin. It was me all along, Austin.
Number 4. Armbar.
I will never retire.
I still got 200 more. I got 200 more holes to list.
Good afternoon, everyone in the B Plus Brotherhood. It is I, Mr. Mysterious, and you are back with me for All The Rest, where we talk about all the wrestling news that we can't cover in all our usual scheduled programming, because we have podcasts for everything. We have podcasts for Impact, we have podcasts for WWE, which we have split, of course, just to cover as much of the WWE content that is coming out as possible. We've got stuff about Aussie Graps. Check out our latest interview with the lover boy, Lockie Hendricks. Very entertaining stuff. Really worth a listen to. And we have our Kings of Sport Universe podcast, where we cover all New Japan and also all the affiliated productions. But while you're not listening to them, have a chat, have a sit down with me. We'll have a good time. A little bit of housekeeping. I usually do the birthday news, and boy, start of autumn, March 1st at the time I'm recording. Whole lot of birthdays. I'm going to have to run through this as quick as I can. We've got Mike Tenay, former Impact announcer, turns 64. Got Biggie of the New Day, turns 33. Our own Aussie Emma, who now works for Ring of Honor with the Lifeblood, she turned 30. Congratulations to her. Kyle O'Reilly, who's an NXT star, former Ring of Honor World Champion, turns 33. WCW, ECW legend Scotty Riggs, Scotty Anton, however you remember him, he turns 48. General Adnan, or the Big White Wolf, I believe that's right, he turns 80. Like, he used to wrestle for the WWF, and for those of you who know your history in Australian wrestling, he was the last NWA Australian Heavyweight Champion. So this was back in the 60s. I think it got rebranded it got merged with the Australasian Heavyweight Championship. It's really interesting, guys. If you want to look up some more about Australian wrestling, check it out. It's really good. And of course, how can I forget? King Booker T, the 5-time WCW champion, turns 54. Announcer, Shucky Ducky, all that good stuff. We have a big news week to cover for you guys. I'm going to be covering MLW, AEW, and NWA as always, as well as all the wacky world of wrestling news that has popped up on my desk today, because it's a really good one, I think. So I'll begin with MLW. episode 46, where the main event has been Aerostar versus Ray Horus. We're kind of back into we've had ups and downs with MLW this past few weeks. I think we can all agree that Super Fight wasn't the best, and I said last week how it was one of the best episodes of MLW that I've seen in quite a long time. We're kind of just in the okay area now, where we're kind of back to the usual pace for MLW, I feel. So we'll just run through this. We opened with MJF and Teddy Hart. We had a call open about MJF and Teddy Hart, of course, running through the attack that MJF and Richard Holiday did against MJF. We had, of course, the opening match. We had Lance Anoa'i versus Rich Swann. It's good to see Lance Anoa'i come back to MLW. I don't think we've seen him properly since he teamed with his father, the head shrinker Samu, who is, I believe, still dealing with cancer. So send your support and love to him, of course. Rich Swann, this is his first match since his heel turn. I don't know. He did a promo where he's cutting these weird voices. He wants to thank the fans, but at the same time, it feels like he's putting it on. He comes out to the ring. He says that he's appreciative of everybody who supports him and everything else, and everyone who tries to high five him or who tries to show support, he flicks them off. He flips them off, I think, at one stage. He's just getting really more eccentric, more cocky. I don't know. It's very strange what he's trying to go for. But nevertheless, Swann, he's still got his flippy and flamboyant offense, which again, you would think if he was proper heel, he would kind of reverse that and be a bit more grounded, just to show that he's a bit more of a dick. So I don't know. Maybe he's slowly changing, but at the moment he's not fully. This is in his final form, is what I'm trying to get at. Lance is hitting a few heritage moves on Swann. He did a few Samoan drops, dives on the outside, headbutts, chops, all that good jazz. We've had this contra interruption. I don't think I mentioned it last week, where just all of a sudden we see the words contra appear. It happened last week. I don't know if it's a new faction or it's a specific wrestler. The announcing team don't recognize it. I feel like it's a faction. So I'm not sure where it's going, but it appears everywhere in the past couple of weeks. If you guys notice it, I might have to really focus on what it might be. Swann does this really good thing with the referees, trying to tell him that something was illegal. Like Swann saying, "This is illegal," and grabs Lance's hair and pulls it for the count of 4. Where then we see 4 crowd shots in a row. So Swann did something that he wasn't supposed to, maybe? I'm not too sure. A little bit of, yeah. But Swann ended up winning. He went for his second rope Phoenix Splash. He missed. Lance was able to get a super kick on Swann. He goes for a 450. Swann actually rolls up Lance while holding the ropes, or grabbing the ropes, I should say, for the win. Very bizarre. Again, so he's cheating to win, more aggressive, still trying to say he's a okay guy. I don't know. Very all confusing. We'll see how it turns out in the next coming weeks, but at the very least, Rich Swann has a bit more character to him, so I'm not fussed about that. I'm actually looking forward to it, because you need some more personalities to evolve out of the MLW ranks with the time they have. We had a couple promos from the world champion Tom Lawler about where has Loki been hiding. Apparently he's training with some former opponents that Lawler faced often against in UFC. He's training in Puerto Rico, away from cameras. He's down in the dungeons just preparing for the steel cage match at Intimidation Games. We had MJF cut a promo on Teddy Hart, calling him a phony, that he's just really, again, I mentioned this last week, I'll say it again, it feels like MJF is being given a lot more promo time, and he's just reveling in this. Richard Holiday is lucky to be in the presence of MJF. They have not sold me that they are a team. Holiday feels like an absolute lackey. So I doubt that they will win at Intimidation Games. They may, of course, if MJF decides to be a little bit facetious. I don't know. But it's weird. Like, he did not say a word as well. Holiday, he's just like right behind MJF, just saying like, I cannot compare to this guy. So MJF, Teddy Hart's not on this episode except for H2TV, and he's a little bit more scatterbrained than usual in this H2TV. He's talking about saying like the growing up in the Hart dungeon, saying that they're straight shooters, and we had a little bit more bits of Davy Boy Smith on H2TV, and just focusing on like Teddy Hart addressing, saying like, "Oh, been smoking for about 25 years, except for the time when I was in jail." It feels like we're slowly getting a like Jeff Hardy CM Punk esque kind of story, but at the same time they're not committing to it as much. So I don't know how far they want to go with it because the crowd loves Teddy Hart, and I doubt trying to bring up all that bad blood and all that history. I don't know if it will be a good thing, but we'll see. Mance Warner comes out. He completely confuses the hell out of Casey Lennox, which just made me smile. Saying his whole gimmick is light beers, eye pokes, knee pads, and of course, lariats for the win, which is exactly what happened pretty much. He had his match against Jimmy Uta. Of course, welcome back Jimmy Uta just randomly appears out of nowhere, since I believe he's feuded with Jason Cade. I think Jason Cade got injured a little while ago, and they just haven't had a chance to utilize Jimmy Uta. I think maybe he was a part of the ladder match where Teddy Hart was crowned middleweight champion. That's might have been the last time we've seen him. So it's good to see him back. We need a little bit more highlight towards the middleweight division. It wasn't a complete squash. Like Mance Warner, he's got of course he's the CCW heavyweight champion now since MJF got injured and had to vacate the belt. His offense makes it seem like he's very like rusty as a wrestler, which I don't think this was the best debut, quote unquote, for Mance Warner. I can see a lot of great potential there. Everything he said in his little game plan promo kind of worked out for him. He did not. I was expecting a big kind of clothesline from hell, like kind of JBL esque from him, but it did the job. He did the running knee. He did the lariat for the win. Good old Mansa. I like his whole like crazy, kind of like the James Storm Cowboy, because it's a little bit more deranged, a little bit more Dean Ambrose esque. He will be a really great asset for MLW, which is why they've been hyping him up for so long. As I mentioned, we had Teddy Hart and David Boy Smith H2TV, and the main event was Ray Horace versus Aerostar. So the Lucha Underground stars, they're getting more work elsewhere. So we mentioned last week that one of the producers or one of the assistant producers said that he thinks Lucha Season 5 will not happen. And of course, with all the lawsuits that they're being dealt with from stars like King Cuerno and Ivelisse, like, yeah, the Lucha Underground stars need to find work elsewhere. And we had this big flippy match between Ray Horace and Aerostar. Very extravagant match, very cool. It's pretty straightforward Lucha match. I mean, I knew what to expect because I know these guys are very talented, and I don't know, they hit all the spots, which I can't fault. I don't know. It lacks something for me. As much as I love these guys, I think they are highlight talents. It felt like a very thrown together main event. Horace hit the code red sunset flip powerbomb from the top rope for the win. It was very entertaining from start to finish. You couldn't take your eyes off it, but it's the type of wrestling that there's luchador wrestling, and they haven't focused on for a while with the single stars. I don't know. It feels like a very rushed together kind of promo. And again, at the end of the episode, they say they cut to Selena, where they cut to an exclusive interview with Selena De La Renta, and they do the same thing again. Selena's just saying like, go away. So like, you confirm your interviews before you say yes. Just a little petty peeve there. But she's saying that, oh, I'm sorry, I don't speak English, but apparently the camera guy also speaks Spanish. And so she managed to coax out of him saying like, okay, Loki's training with a former opponent of Tom Lawler's. And then she's like, oh yeah, I don't speak Spanish anymore. and then I think she might have swapped to French. Really weird promo. Really weird note to end on. Again, so we had the Lucha match, we had a little weird promo. I'm okay with MLW this week. It wasn't groundbreaking. Everyone was consistent in their work. I don't have any news about next week's news because it will be Intimidation Games, which is happening this Saturday. Also, Battle Riot, I believe, will be happening around April 5th, which means they're going live against NXT TakeOver. That's a very ballsy move. I don't know if MLW will be able to manage that, but at the very least, I respect them for testing the waters, see how they go, see how they stack up in the independent scene compared to the NXT guys. So I hope at the very least people will tune into them as well, because you know what? I'm going to make sure that I talk about all things MLW for you guys each and every week. You can count on that. We'll go on to some AEW news, and of course with the elites being the elites. That didn't flow as well as I thought it would, but episode 40, Windy City Surprise. So this was just the build-up and to the confirmation that at Double or Nothing, we have the Young Bucks going up against the Lucha Brothers, Pentagon Jr. and Rey Fenix. It's confirmed. Like, we kind of knew it was going to happen, but just this whole episode as well, this was the Young Bucks being ninjas and preparing to surprise everybody in the Windy City to face off against the Lucha Brothers. So they cost the Lucha Brothers at AEW, not to be confused with the AEW in Australia. They cost them their tag team championships over there against LAX, Shades of Impact, their whole feud in Impact there. So they assisted, they screwed them out of the titles, and they said then they challenged them to a match at Double or Nothing. The Lucha Brothers said yes, and then they got super kicked, and they pretty much said, yeah, we know your schedule now, so we'll be seeing you soon. So they are not done building to this whole tag team thing, and especially with AEW wanting to make tag team wrestling the most important thing amongst the amazing work that they are doing, which we'll address later on in the episode. They're doing all the right things. I already know that Young Bucks versus Lucha Brothers is going to be one of the best matches on that Double or Nothing card, like out of the gate. I can see them really depending on how who crosses the line, how more heated this gets. Yeah, I can see this being great. The other news from this, we had Hangman Page and the Young Bucks were kind of talking three-way conversation. They're just saying that he was in full gear just to kind of test the waters, and they're giving him advice. They want him to be thinner, but also bulkier. They want him to slim down but tone up. They're just bullshitting him. So they don't know what they want. I'm really curious what they'll do when it comes to Double or Nothing, and we've continued the bit where every time someone mentions Double or Nothing, we cut to the promotional the advert, and they just go, "Never look back, no, never say die." In the middle of all this, so aside from that, Joey Ryan is scared shitless of everybody. He's worried about being attacked again. He doesn't get attacked this week, fortunately, but I'm sure he will be a little bit more paranoid in the next episode. Sammy Guevara surprises the Young Bucks. He gives them a nice gift, and then MJF comes around, and his gift was a cold that he had gotten from a fan and saying, "Enjoy influenza, you jerks." And the Young Bucks kind of just went, wow, that Sammy Guevara is a prick. No, completely unfazed by MJF. So MJF has fooled Cody and the Young Bucks. Oh boy, I'm really confused how far this is going to go with them. MJF, don't hurt their feelings. We like the Young Bucks. We like Cody. Be gentle. Alright? But that's pretty much all being the elite. So really just this whole story, pretty much throughout this whole episode, was the Lucha Brothers versus the Young Bucks. And I gotta say, I am pretty happy with how it turned out. And of course, guys, finally, we have an NWA 10 pounds of gold episode. I am so happy to talk to you about NWA. It's pretty much what I spoke to you guys about last week, except in 10 pounds of gold episodic form, where Marty Skrull and Nick Aldis are challenging, and the main event of the Crockett Cup for the World Championship for the 10 pounds of gold. It kind of covered that story, but it added a little bit more history to it, where Nick Aldis got to talk to Dory Funk about his historic 4-year reign as NWA champion. He got to train some of the guys, like Nick Aldis, I should say, helped Dory teach a couple stars some things, and it was just, again, we're just getting on into that legacy. We're remembering the past but embracing the future, and I love that about NWA. I love that about the 10 pounds of gold YouTube channel. Really excited to keep going with those. I thought we'd get a little bit more news because NWA already announced Skrull versus Aldis, but no, it was just focusing on Dory, and then reminding everyone, I should say, about Marty Skrull. So that was alright. But NWA also uploaded a match with Jazz going up against Heather Monroe. I completely forgot about this because I think I mentioned this on our Facebook group a little while ago, because Jazz has had a very long title reign as NWA Women's Champion. 900 days now, in fact. She is crushing it at the moment. And of course, they showed her full match defending the NWA Women's Championship to see if she would go past 900 days. Spoiler, she did. The whole feud was the fact that Heather said that she's older than YouTube, so she's not worth her time, which, petty reason, sure, I'll run with it. It was just an excuse for Jazz to beat the crap out of her. It was a pretty steady match. It is worth watching. I would say that, and they did play a little bit of a clip about an excerpt from Jazz at the Pop-In press conference saying that she wants the women's division to be like newly minted, just like, where's my 10 pounds of gold? Like, she wants that crowning, which NWA has kind of been silent on. I feel like 1,000. Like, when she hits 1,000 days, they're gonna crown her with a new championship. I feel like they're focusing all their energy on the Crockett Cup, which so they should be, of course, with all the stars that they are going to have from Ring of Honor, New Japan, CMML, all that. And then after that, they might say, we'll branch out our women's division just a little bit more to show that we are embracing change and, again, making sure that the women's division and women's wrestling in general is brought more to the forefront. I look forward to it. So that was our little main news stories that we had with those three promotions, guys. I'll cut to all the other wrestling news after cutting to Greg and our sponsors.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey everyone, just want to take a second to tell you about one of our new sponsors, Outbreak Nutrition. Outbreak Nutrition are creating supplements for survival, sharper minds, quicker reflexes, all the energy you need to take your performance to the next level, whether that be on the field, in the gym, on the gaming field. That's right, they have specifically designed gaming supplements as well to help you focus on those late night sessions. They even sell coffee, you guys, at Outbreak Nutrition. You can get coffee pods, you can get coffee beans, you can get supplements for the bedroom as well if you want to enhance your performance there. These are performance enhancing supplements for every aspect of your life, specifically designed by gamers, for gamers, to stay fit and healthy in the gym, to stay sharp and focused on the game, and to dominate in all areas of life. So check out outbreaknutrition.com, and for being a listener of our podcast, they will give you 10% off your order when you enter the code B+. That is BPLUS at checkout. So make sure, if you want to stay on top of your game, if you want to take your performance to the next level, outbreaknutrition.com, enter the code B+ at checkout.
And we are back, guys. Just to let you know, I just reminded myself, as when I mentioned the birthday news at the start of the episode, I forgot to mention a very important birthday. The WWE Network turned 5. Good little tyke. My, how it's grown. How did we survive before the WWE Network in terms of their library and all their uploading. But in honor of the WWE Network's 5th birthday, they actually uploaded WrestleMania 34 in its entirety. Over 5 hours, 5.5 hours of wrestling content available for free on YouTube. Check it out, guys. And of course, WWE Network are going to be, to keep the celebration going, because of course, with birthday news, I'm the birthday guy here. They're doing a big mega marathon, so I think they're going to be, I don't know if they're going to be uploading even more of their old pay-per-views, but I think they're going to do some bios on like the Royal Rumble and some other groundbreaking moments, like what's happened since the WWE Network was unveiled to us 5 years ago. I really recommend checking that out. But of course, let's cut to all the other wrestling news that we have, starting with the injury list. And man, we do have a couple of new additions, which sucks. We have David Finlay, of course, Ring of Honor, New Japan star, member of the Lifeblood. He's had to pull out of the New Japan Cup with a shoulder injury. We don't know how long it's going to be for. It doesn't sound like it's going to be a serious thing. It just seems like, for the time being, he has to pull out from his New Japan appearances, which, okay, rest up, Mr. Finlay. I love your dad, the man who loves to fight. The Finlays are one of those wrestling families not many people talk about. And this other bit of news story, this kind of made me real disappointed. Tommaso Ciampa is apparently injured. With what we can't say, the rumor mill is that it might be his knee or it might be his neck, something to that area, because this past SmackDown, when he was in a match, like the referee pulled up the X sign, which is always the uh-oh sign. Something's happened. And again, like this is all speculation. All we know is that apparently he's injured and that he's had this injury for a while, but this call up to the main roster, which was very sporadic, very out of the blue, very spontaneous, according to, if the rumor mill is right, that Mr. McMahon just thought, who are the top 4 guys in NXT? Let's bring them over to the main roster to spice up the division, because apparently he needed spicing up because he hasn't built up enough stars there. I'm going to get off a tangent if I keep going with that. It kind of sucks. Like, the NXT guys, we're only just like 2 weeks in to the NXT guys making their main roster debuts. And this kind of was a test to see how they'd hang on the main roster. And already the NXT champion, Tommaso Ciampa, is potentially out of action for I don't know how long. It's very sad, and I hope that this doesn't impact any future NXT stars making their transition to the main roster, and it might make the management just like, okay, let's not just out of the blue put all these stars on the main roster, and like let's gradually do it in a way that makes sense. So hopefully we'll be able to sort that out. Of course, with the Dusty Rhodes Classic tournament, DIY is announced for that. I'm curious if they will be replaced now, or if Johnny Gargano will find another partner. Obviously, we want Goldie and Ciampa to have a continuing relationship. We want Ciampa to thrive on the main roster. Best wishes to you, sir. Returns this week. Oh boy. You want to talk? I mentioned at the start how it's a big day for birthdays. It's a big day for return. Big week for returns. My God. Start with Hiromu Takahashi. This is a possible, of course. The former IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion. It seems like he might be finally on his way back to the squared circle. Saying that he'd make a surprise appearance at the upcoming New Japan show, where he's expected to announce a comeback. Of course, he had a very horrific neck break while wrestling against Dragon Lee, I think in July last year at the G1 special. It was a very nasty head bump. If you look it up, it was just like, I think it was off like a Phoenix press. I don't know. Needless to say, this is great news if true that Hiromu Takahashi is going to be once again a part of the New Japan roster. I'll chip in some more returns. Of course, we had, I don't know which one to start off with because all of these are like really big. Of course, I'll start with Kevin Owens has made his return this past SmackDown. Of course, taking Kofi Kingston's spot in the main event. Like just Mr. McMahon just once again meddling in the affairs of Raw and SmackDown, just asserting who he wants to be the top contenders for the titles. I'm really curious what they're going to do with those storylines. Like, I was okay with him picking Charlotte, but the fact that they've got KO as well, very similar storyline that makes it seem like they're going to do 2 triple threats at WrestleMania. It seems like they don't know how else to like big up stories. And what a weird return for Kevin Owens. Just to be plopped in the middle of all this white hot energy for Kofi Kingston, to everyone wanting him to finally grab the WWE Championship. And now KO's in the mix, and apparently a face. So he's like a reluctant face. He's a face, but he's reluctantly been put in a crap situation. I don't know, very bizarre, but of course, amazing to see Kevin Owens. Another surprise return on SmackDown was the Hardy Boys. We mentioned last week that apparently Matt had about like 11 days on his contract still, and he's saying like, WWE, TikTok, my contract is coming up soon. They haven't confirmed that the Hardy Boys have been re-signed. So if this was like a weird last minute match for the last hurrah for the Hardy Boys, it was a nice thing. Like, basically, Matt and Jeff, it only lasted for a few minutes. They just hit their spots. It was like the Attitude Era all over again. I hope that they, in the next coming days, they just say, oh yeah, we've re-signed the Hardy Boys, because if that's true, then it shows that Vince McMahon and WWE, they want to do something with the tag division. They don't know what it is yet, but they want to do something. So, baby steps, I guess. Of course, the Hardy Boys, one last run, like especially Matt Hardy coming back from his pelvis being fused to his back, like having to recover from all those injuries that accumulated over time. And he's in there, both the Hardy Boys in their quarter of a century career. They've been doing it for a very long time, guys. Now, of course, the big ones, the big returns. I'll start with the animal. Batista made his return. He ruined Ric Flair's 70th birthday celebration, which I'll admit, we thought that it would be Becky Lynch. It seemed like the most natural thing. It seemed like the most obvious thing. To be the man, you got to beat the man and all that. But no, they completely swerved us. Good on you, WWE. They are capable of surprising us. They are capable of some really like great content when pressured. So that we now have, I feel like we're building up to, once again, Triple H versus Batista at WrestleMania 35. It is back on, guys. Batista, I don't know if this was pre-recorded. I don't think we ever saw, like, Ric Flair never came out during Raw. I think I'm getting ahead of myself. So, of course, the Raw 70 celebration. If you want to see the full coverage, check out our View from the WWE Universe with Dandis and CJ talking about it. But essentially, Batista broke into Ric Flair's dressing room, beat the crap out of him, dragged him out by the scruff of his coat, and said, "Hunter, do I have your attention now?" Huh? Big return for Batista. The animal is back, and I love it. Like, WWE's ratings, I should point out, had a 6-month high during this latest episode of Raw. But I think mainly because of the animal, and of course the other thing that kicked off Raw. So started and ended Raw with 2 big returns. So yeah, the ratings went up. And I think we mentioned last week that the NXT debuts, that was the biggest the ratings had been in 5 months. So they've got all these big reveals lined up, and it seems like apparently Batista is getting a more consistent schedule from this building up to WrestleMania. I don't think you will be seeing him having any matches per se, but we'll be seeing him more on WWE programming just to get the storyline with him and Triple H back on track. Because no one would have expected him to go after Ric Flair, the man he tagged with back in Evolution. They won the World Tag Team Championships back when that faction had all the gold. And of course, the big news, the other big news, the big return, the big dog Roman Reigns came back and revealed to us that he is in remission. He is back, baby. The big dog is back. I will like for those of you who listened last week, I will eat crow and say I did not expect Roman Reigns to be able to be in remission for be in remission from leukemia in just like 5 months. We do have to keep in mind that leukemia is a very different kind of cancer compared to the others. If you know your stuff about, unfortunately, that terrible, terrible disease. Of course, very heartwarming. It was just refreshing just to hear a complete cheer, a raucous of applause for Roman Reigns when you've gone are the days where coming after defeating the Undertaker at WrestleMania, just the chorus of 8 to 10 minutes of boos and "F you Roman" chants. Now it's kind of looped back around, and the guys love him now. Of course, they won't be able to really separate the character from the man. That will be a very different story that they'll have to cross that bridge when they get to it. But some people have come out, apparently, saying that they don't believe that Roman Reigns' leukemia was legitimate. They thought it was a work. Now I'm gonna try and keep this as PC as I can, but I will say that look, I understand that people like to think outside the box with this and to not trust the storyline that we've been given with a lot of things. So I understand. I respect people for thinking outside the box like that. But let me just throw this out there, because I would admit, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I could see WWE doing a storyline like this, not as a heavyweight, not with they're one of their heavyweight stars, but with one of their mid card stars, going away for an illness like cancer or something and coming back healthier, stronger than ever, to have everyone just saying yeah, that guy's back, right? But doing that now, when WWE has risen to this big international platform with some of their sponsors, breast cancer foundations, right? Their sponsors would drop them they would drop them so fast before you could say AEW. They would be screwed if they were to ever do a work story involving cancer. That would be the worst business decision for them to ever make, right? That's me personally saying this, but it feels like I could never see them doing that in this day and age. And one of the things that, especially of all people, of all organizations, the Leukemia Foundation has actually chipped in to people claiming that this might be a work. So the actual organization took it upon themselves to address the fans just to confirm that, no, this is crazy talk you guys are talking. Of course, we don't know specifics about Roman Reigns' health, but they had to just break it down for people just to say that, look, leukemia is a very different kind of cancer, and chemo affects people. Leukemia and treatment for it affects people very differently. Some people lose weight, some people gain weight. They were name dropping all these facts. They even tagged Dave Meltzer on Twitter, which I thought was absolutely beautiful. Just if someone in the Leukemia Foundation knows who the main wrestling journalist is in the world, and just here, spread this to the masses. We don't need people besmirching a cancer survivor. And especially they said watch it, guys, remission. He could obviously, leukemia is an ongoing thing, and especially for someone who has beaten it now twice. Just mind yourself with the theories. So in short, I don't think it's a work. Just be happy that Roman Reigns is back, guys. We have some releases. Madison Rayne has been released from Ring of Honor after creative differences. Mama Rain is now a free agent. She's, of course, one of the main staples of Impact Wrestling back in the day, with the beautiful people, former Impact champion, multiple time Impact Knockouts champion, former Knockout Tag Team champion. She's done a lot for the women's division. She's a very lesser known indie darling. So, of course, free agent. Someone hit up Madison Rayne. She needs some work, guys. I'll cut to some more wrestling news here. Signings. I don't talk about this much, but it feels like a lot has happened. Signings. We had, I'll talk Impact guys. We've had a lot of signings with them, which is kind of lovely to say because Impact has been in complete disarray, people leaving left and right. So it's nice to say, okay, who's staying, who's coming in, rather than who's going out. We have guys like Scott Alexander, who is coming in. Sammy Callahan has re-signed with a 3-year deal. Falabar, I believe that's how you pronounce it, he signed with Impact. And of course, Rosemary, she signed a 2-year deal with Impact Wrestling. So it's nice to see that Impact is slowly garnering their ranks back, especially in a sea of complete chaos with their division and the independent scene. All this stuff happening. It's nice to know that some stars are just committing to trying to improve Impact Wrestling potentially, just with the state of it now. We had a couple more signings over in NXT UK. There's a lot of stars all across from Europe. The 5 stars, I'll try and pronounce them all properly, but we had Jazzy Gabert, Kaylee Ray, Oliver Carter, Jay Melrose, and Ija Dragunov. So there's some big names. I believe some stars of like from Germany and from the independent scene over there. So they've included some more diverse talent to the NXT UK roster. Very happy for them. We've got like WWE is slowly trying to change a lot of stuff. So of course with their NXT UK branch and just the whole company in general, because they keep bringing in new people. They keep bringing in all these new producers and writers and stuff. Because I can't remember if I mentioned it last week, guys, but Bruce Pritchard, former WWE producer, is back in a high level position in the company. He stepped away for a while. Like he did some work with Impact. He did some work with, I believe, MLW for at one stage. And this wasn't like a sudden thing. Like apparently this has been in talks for a little while, like since January. Can't say last month now. It's really good to see that Bruce Pritchard was back in that way, and especially like rumor was, I can't say this complete certainty, that the kind of off the cuff Shield reunion, quote unquote, on Raw, that was apparently spur of the moment, and I feel like of all the people to kind of help speed stuff like that along, I feel like that might have been Bruce Pritchard's work, because of course he was the main producer back during the Attitude Era, like during those years where WWE was on its increase, where WWE was on the rise, shall we say. And of course, Steve Corino is going to be a new WWE producer. We've got Dave Schillings is going to be a writer. Dana Warrior is going to be a new writer with WWE. It feels like they are really expanding on their goals to make WWE just this real, like confirm that they are this global juggernaut, because they have the biggest international platform of all the promotions. And it feels like they really want to utilize that a lot more. Like they actually like need to, of course, with all the upcoming independent promotions that are really starting to garner a lot of attention. And half the reason that they're investing so much time in producers and more marketing, more focus on their younger talent, is because they want these producers to be more, instead of bringing in guest trainers, like less guest trainers and more the producers will be in charge of NXT in some capacity. Like they'll be NXT coaches more so than WWE producers. So of course we've got guys like Abyss, like Davari, like the Hurricane. There are a lot of big names like of Sanjay Dutt, the big independent names, big former WWE stars like Jeff Jarrett, of course, who helped found Impact Wrestling. So they're learning from the independent scene. They're learning from former WWE stars. They're learning from guys who's just like such a diverse level of experience in like hardcore wrestling with Abyss. Certainly, it seems like they're making safe bets and they're really looking more towards the future. So it's a very good time to be a wrestling fan. especially like whether you're watching WWE, whether you're watching all like AEW when it comes out, whether you're watching uh, MLW, Ring of Honor, Impact, it feels like it's a good time to be a wrestling fan. I've got some AEW news for you guys. I didn't mention, by the way, that we had a new episode of Double or Nothing come out, episode 5, which there's a big thing that I want to talk to you guys about. The fact that AEW are partnering with Culture City to make Double or Nothing the very first sensory inclusive event, which is the best news in the world to hear as a wrestling fan, because if you've ever gone to a wrestling event, it can be a very overwhelming experience for a lot of people. Like, so if you like, I've seen fans like many times who like autistic or have some kind of disabilities or some kind of special needs, that they want to be a part of a wrestling crowd, but at the same time there is so much stuff going on. Like, especially so you think about it, the like loud noises. Sometimes wrestling fans cannot be very hygienic, so strong smells, right? Bright lights. It can be a little bit overwhelming for some, especially for young children. So this partnership with Culture City, like they're going to have a room set up where the uh, autistic children, or like children who require a little bit more special attention, they can go to relax, to unwind. I believe they said there was like a certain wall that they could just deal with everything. They had noise cancelling headphones. They've got little things like little fidget spinner things just to help them focus. And just, this is beautiful. I'm surprised no one has thought to do this. I want to see more promotions doing this, because like wrestling, again, I mentioned this last week, wrestling should be for everybody. And when I say that, I mean everybody. It doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter like what race you are, what your orientation is, like what your religion is. Like, we should all be allowed to enjoy wrestling. And this is just furthering the reach that wrestling can have with people. Now it's going to be that if other companies follow the trend, which please, because this, I have not been able to stop talking about this to everyone since I watched the latest Double or Nothing episode, that more promotions need to do this. A little bit of other news that came out from that Double or Nothing episode is that the latest signee to All Elite Wrestling was Bea Priestley. They didn't say that she'd be on the next Double or Nothing show, but they did say that she's going to be on Fight for the Fallen for their July show. So whether she's a part of the over budget battle royal, maybe it might be a bit of a surprise, but we know definitely that she'll be at Fight for the Fallen. Very exciting news coming from that. Hangman Page with AEW, like, speaking of like other like groundbreaking stuff, because so we've had this storyline in Being Elite for a little while that Hangman Page, apparently he needs to lose some weight because he's facing Park, and Park is a specimen, and saying that he looks embarrassing in his ring gear. So he's making a full ring gear challenge. He's encouraging fans to join him on his journey to get fit, which, like, this makes so much sense. This explains so much with this AEW story. So not only are they branching out to cover like people who need a bit more, not only are they branching out to be more sensory inclusive, they are also helping people with their fitness goals leading up to Double or Nothing. This is brilliant. I did not think of this. I thought this was just like a funny thing, like haha body shaming, but they are really, like, this is just an extra bit of marketing that is just brilliant, that shows that All Elite Wrestling have their finger on the pulse. They are really trying to change the universe with the independent scene. And it goes to show that, just like Chris Jericho said, they are trying to change the universe when it comes to professional wrestling. Whether, of course, that is all the work of Chris Jericho and not everyone else. If you watch Double or Nothing, the Double or Nothing episode, yeah, that's subjective. But of course, all the other things that we have on here, I'm really surprised about how, like, all these moves that All Elite Wrestling are doing, like they're really hitting all the right notes. Where Kenny Omega, he's talking about how he was the main person to help bring in some of the Joshi stars, because apparently he's targeting some of the Joshi wrestlers for All Elite Wrestling. And it seems like if the Young Bucks are in charge of the tag team roster, Brandy's in charge of branding and the women's wrestling, Cody is in charge of mainly the main roster talent. It feels like that Kenny Omega, in his role with All Elite Wrestling, he is the overseas recruiter, because he said that he recommended that AEW book Aja Kong and Yuka Sakazaki, and he claimed to be in talks with the likes of DDT Pro Wrestling, Oz Academy, which of course is Aja Kong's promotion there, Wave, Gutto Move, and Gutto Move, I believe, about utilizing talent for All Elite Wrestling, like with Park, with Dragon Gate. Like, All Elite Wrestling are working with everybody. They are making all these relationships work. I believe Kenny Omega still lives in Japan, and like the guy speaks like near fluent Japanese, so of course he's your perfect guy to be an overseas recruiter. And this is a little thing as well, because when he said that they want to work with DDT Pro, which Kenny Omega was a part of for a number of years, while at the same time working with New Japan, the owner of DDT has come out to say that whatever Kenny wants, they will work with him, because they love Kenny Omega. They adore him for his work that he did with them over there. And like a little plot point from last week that I didn't really realize kind of syncs up to this, because how Kenny kind of said to the Young Bucks and Cody, just saying like, I want to wrestle, guys. What dates do you have for me? It's like, oh, well, we've got Double or Nothing. Yeah, but I want to wrestle. What dates do you have for me? It's like, yeah, we've got Double or Nothing. I feel like Kenny's saying that I want to work for other promotions as well, outside of AEW, like the ones that they're working with. He might want to do a couple matches as well. So while the Young Bucks are doing the surprise appearances, we might see Kenny Omega appear on a DDT show again. The return of Omega. I would love to see that. I would actually adore that so much. Now we've got Cody was announced to be appearing at one of the AAA shows, I believe on March 16th. Why not? Like, Omega, hit up DDT again. If you want to wrestle, by all means, there are plenty of promotions that would love to have you. But he's saying how I mentioned like he wants New Japan to have a women's roster. Like, apparently that was one of the things that he spoke to them about, kind of offhandedly, which they have not done. That they've got this really, New Japan is one of the best promotions in the world, like just under WWE in terms of international platform, but in terms of the quality of wrestling, arguably is like they're doing some of the best work in the globe right now. But they don't have women's wrestling, and it's like to be more inclusive. Like, that's apparently what Kenny Omega was all about, and that kind of went into his decision making to sign with All Elite Wrestling, like targeting the Joshi stars, like working with these other Japanese promotions, these other promotions all across the globe. This is a weird time to be this is a weird time in the wrestling world. It's a great time for fans, but in terms of the whole scene as well, it's very weird, because especially, guys, according to Dave Meltzer, the WWE superstars, like, they are rumored to no longer be scared about being vocal towards management, right? With all this news, like, about how people who feel like they have been jaded or screwed over by WWE with their current status, if they are going to be, of course, given offers by All Elite Wrestling or somewhere else, that they will double their offers to get them to stay. It seems like the scene is now, according to Dave Meltzer, where they're being a bit more vocal. I have one thing to say about that. Good. Very, very good. That is how it should be. Because these guys are independent contractors. They should have all the power, right? It's a very good thing. Like, think back to the Attitude Era, guys. the stars had a lot more creative control over their personas, over their characters, right? Because the machine of WWE, it's only gotten worse. Like how it the whole creativity thing can be very, very stifling. That's one of the reasons why Kenny Omega has not agreed to anything with WWE, any deals, because one of the main reasons that we've heard from him multiple times was that he wants the creativity to do whatever he wants, or like to be in charge of his character. And WWE, they tell people what they should be, which they don't give like they don't give their stars much input to be their own persona, which has its positives and negatives. But at the same time, the way that All Elite Wrestling has impacted the global scene, because like according to Hangman Page as well, is saying like he's heard of guys' offers being doubled, like not just from WWE but from like other promotions across the globe, just from the fact that AEW have been around now, like that they are about to like break out come May. It's fantastic news. Like more opportunities for the wrestlers, more opportunities for the fans. I love this, guys. We need this train of All Elite Wrestling, the road to Double or Nothing. It needs to keep on going. Like it needs to help course correct a lot of decisions that other promotions have been making. So if you hear more stuff coming out from WWE about some of the stars who are getting a little bit more attention, this is kind of why. I have a couple other stories before I wrap up, guys. CM Punk is wrestling again. Kinda. All the talk of CM Punk, everyone has wanted CM Punk to return to the squared circle for a very long time. And of course, after he left WWE, he started a UFC career. He had a couple matches where he didn't work out too well. He's a comic book writer, right? And I believe he's got an announcing job with UFC in the near future. But at the Chicago Comic Expo, to their Comic Con, CM Punk is going to be there with Marty Scurll, the villain, and they are going to have a thumb wrestling match. So that was one of the things where people were just saying like, oh, who would win in a fight between the villain and CM Punk, and they had this statistic kind of like UFC and everything else, and they just said, oh yeah, we're going to have a match to see who is truly the best. And then CM Punk put on his Twitter saying like, it's a thumb wrestling match, guys, come on. Like just trolling the fans like once more. Like CM Punk will always be inundated with wrestling fans saying, when you're coming back to wrestling, when you're coming back to wrestling. It will never go away, which can wear on someone if you persist at it. That's of course we want CM Punk to come back to wrestling. Like we had this theory a while ago that they've laid the groundwork, like conspiracy theory Greg put on his hat and said like they've got these opportunities lined up for him should he say like, yeah, I want to get back into professional wrestling. But thumb wrestling match, hey, if we can have the IWGP United States Championship defended in Australia in a staring contest in a rock, paper, scissors match, yeah, CM Punk, thumb wrestling match, good on him. Couple other news. I mentioned last week we ended the show with the reveal of Chris Hemsworth is apparently playing Hulk Hogan in an upcoming Netflix biopic. Apparently Rusev wanted to play one of the foreign heels like the Iron Sheik and everyone else, but even the man himself, the Iron Sheik, has come out with this reveal about, oh, there's going to be a Hulk Hogan biopic. And he said there's only one man who can play the Iron Sheik, and that is himself. In an interview, like they got a statement from the Iron Sheik, and it was very scatterbrained kind of thing. Just saying like the jabroni of the jabroni movie for the Hollywood Bron jabroni need to be the most excellent leading heels. Like he's basically saying like without him, this upcoming movie will be nothing, right? Like he's saying that you'd be smart to put me in it because I'm like the real Denzel Washington. Like whatever. Like Iron Sheik, just he's still pulling it after all these years, which is weirdly not the weirdest wrestling story to come out of this. So I'm going to end on this. So the Nature Boy, who was beaten on his 70th birthday, poor Nate, but he spoke to TMZ and he wants he has a certain person in mind to play him in the upcoming Hulk biopic, Bradley Cooper. Now, if you heard us last week, we mentioned that Bradley Cooper is attached to this movie as an executive producer. This movie is being directed by Todd Phillips, who directed the Hangover trilogy, which Bradley Cooper was a part of. Bradley Cooper has gone on to do some amazing work outside of the Hangover trilogy, like be Rocket Raccoon and Guardians of the Galaxy, like A Star Is Born, which was his first directing role, which has gotten all the awards, so many awards. You cannot turn on the radio without hearing the song Shallow. But yeah, Ric Flair wants Bradley Cooper to play him. Now, I think Bradley Cooper was attached to a Vince McMahon movie at one stage. Like it was a rumor that he was going to play Vince McMahon, and just like Ric Flair, Nate, I know like your birthday was kind of spoiled, and like someone should reward you for getting the shit beaten out of you on your birthday, but as handsome as you were back then, like Bradley Cooper is a very different guy to you. I don't know. Like, that's kind of shooting for the fences there, like saying like, oh, give me the most handsome actor in Hollywood right now to play me, right? And that's like Vince McMahon. Just, I don't know what's worse, guys. If Bradley Cooper was going to what's crazier, I should say, if Bradley Cooper was going to play Ric Flair or he was going to play Vince McMahon. I could see him pulling off both, just depending on, because he's Bradley Cooper. He is that good of an actor. But I don't know. That just seems like Ric Flair, you crazy old cat. Like, I feel like someone is just like, oh, I'll give him one. If this turns out to be true, I'm just going to be laughing my ass off. So yeah, guys, that's all we have for this episode of All The Rest. If you like what we do here, make sure to leave a comment and please leave us a 5-star review because it really does make a difference. We'd love to hear from you guys. If you want to hear from me, I am Mr. Mysterious with a 1 and 7 I. Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all the socials. Hit me up, guys. If you want to follow our super producer Greg, he is at Greg Unchained on Twitter, at the Greg Unchained on Instagram. If you want to follow all of us here at the B Plus Wrestle, because we love you guys, we are at the B Plus Wrestle on Twitter because wrestling wouldn't fit, and the B Plus Wrestling everywhere else. Make sure to check out our Patreon, guys. We have a couple of episodes booked out for you guys in the next couple of weeks. We're looking forward to talking about that with you all. Any contributions you guys can make to our Patreon will be greatly appreciated because we want to try and keep making all this amazing wrestling content. I want to keep talking all the rest with you guys. I want to keep bringing you all this weird news because it feels like it gets weirder and weirder each week. I'm not going to lie. Like, share, subscribe, hit the 5-star review, and thank you guys so much for listening. I've been Mr. Mysterious, and I'll see you later.
Hold one. Arm drag.
You're not good at this. Get out. Let me tell you a personal story about Vince McMahon.
You just made the list.
So, no speak English.
Dummy. Goodbye and good night. Hold 2. Arm bar.
This is the worst town I've ever been in.
It's still real to me, damn it. Dummy. Hold 3. The moss covered. 3-handle family Granunzel.
Mamma mia! It's me, Austin! It was me all along, Austin!
Number 4. Armbar.